As we recount the event that happened a few days ago in the United States, where a group of mobbers tried to invade the United States Capitol in efforts to overturning the election. Now, although we're not going to be focusing on that event per se, we're going to be focusing on a similar event that happened in Jerusalem around 2,000 years ago, in which a mob was inciting the crowd to crucify Jesus. Welcome, friends.
Hello.
We are in a new year, 2021, and as you all know, it did not start like an ordinary year. As mentioned before, we see a group of mobbers try to invade the United States Capitol. Wow. But in this video, we're going to talk about a similar situation that happened in Jerusalem. We're going to focus on the details that happened around 2,000 years ago when they crucified Jesus, right? So we just want to say thank you for joining us. If you're not already subscribed to our channel, please hit that subscribe button. And if you're watching us on Instagram, please go ahead and give me a follow to stay connected, and also follow us on Facebook as well too. But without further ado, we're going to go ahead and jump right into our video, and we're going to be talking about the Pharisees and why they wanted to kill Jesus.
Yes, thank you for that introduction, honey. So yes, why did the Pharisees and the Scribes wanted to kill Jesus? Well, there's a long list of reasons why they wanted to kill Jesus, and they were the ones that incited the mob in Jerusalem. That is similar to what happened in the Capitol in the United States. And you're gonna notice that it was all about power, right? All about power. There's a saying that says absolute power corrupts absolutely. So again, we're not being on the side of politics, right? We're not talking about whether Trump did this, it was wrong or right,
or Biden did this, or it was wrong or right.
What was done was wrong or right. We're just trying to show some similarities of what happened when power corrupts, right?
So the Pharisees, who are the Pharisees?
So the Pharisees and the Scribes were the religious leaders in the days of Christ, right?
Yes.
The Jewish religious leaders. And Christ, it seems like when you read the Gospels, they were always in opposition to each other, because the Scribes and the Pharisees were always, they were hypocrites. They were always teaching things that were pretty much contrary to, if you really go into what the gospel is and the teachings of Christ and the teachings of God is, they were always being a little bit extra, and they were always showing themselves as perfect, which they were not. So Christ saw that and was very much opposed to that. But we're going to go through a few reasons why Christ was in opposition to them.
They totally miss the reason of who Jesus was, and his mission and his purpose while he was here on earth.
Yes.
It's like he did not, for them, they did not have their Christian glasses on. They were just blinded by who he was and didn't understand who he was.
Yes. So we'll go into some reasons, again, why the Pharisees didn't like him that we see in the scriptures. Number one, he exposed their hypocritical pretensions. So you know what hypocrites are? Hypocrites are people that preach to you, tell you to do certain things, and actually they don't practice those things, right? So he saw that through them and exposed that.
Yeah, he called it out.
He called them hypocrites.
You have to understand the type of character that Jesus has. He does things justly and he speaks with wisdom. So when he sees something and he knows it needs correction, he corrects it with love.
Exactly. Then the second reason is the pure religion that he taught that's what I was saying, condemn what they were doing, what they were professing. When you look at the gospel of Christ and look at what they were teaching, it was contrary to what he was teaching. They were adding things, taking away things, which was not the pure religion of Christ.
Yeah.
And then the next one is they were so upset when he healed people and did miracles on the Sabbath.
Yeah, they pictured the Sabbath as not doing anything.
Any type of work. And they thought healing work was opposed to what God wanted. But Jesus is Lord of the Sabbath. And
Yes.
we are supposed to do good on the Sabbath, right?
Exactly.
Also, they were upset because he drew people to himself, and that kind of lessened the authority of the rulers, because they thought he was taking, it's like what we were talking about with what happened in the Capitol. Absolute power corrupts. They saw people were not following their teachings as much anymore and were following the teachings of Christ, right?
Yeah, and they were trying to control that situation.
Yes. And we're gonna
trying to expose him in public, but he always had them in checkmate.
Right. And you know what happened is the commoners, of the citizens of Jerusalem, the Hebrews, sought the wisdom of the religious leaders to instruct them in the ways of God, right? That's why it's important for us to study the Bible for ourselves.
Yeah.
Because they had gained so much power because the people didn't study the scriptures for themselves, so they relied on the scribes and the Pharisees for that.
Yeah.
Now came along someone like Jesus who taught even a purer religion than what they were what the scribes and the Pharisees were teaching, and they were drawn to him, right?
Yes.
Number 5, he had encouraged sinners to go directly to God as a merciful Father. That's what we're supposed to do, and make known their wants. Thus, in their opinion, talking about the priest, he had set aside the priesthood, right? So the priesthood was there. If you look at the sacrificial system and all of that, it was to bring us back to God. All the things in the ceremonial system, which we cannot go through now, we'll do a next video on that. We did it in the past, but we'll do a next video on that. So what Jesus taught was you can go now directly to the Father to bring your petitions to him, right? Yeah. You don't have to rely on the sacrificial system, because it was about to come to an end, right? Yes. When Jesus died on the cross. Or the ceremonial system. Number 6, he had refused to acknowledge the theology of the rabbinical schools. The rabbinical schools was where the scribes and the Pharisees pretty much were taught. And they, for example, the 10 Commandments, they made up more commandments, more instructions to instruct people how to keep the 10 Commandments. So they had so much laws upon laws, and pretty much Jesus did not acknowledge that school, because it was kind of corrupt.
It was taken away from Jesus's character, Jesus' true intention of why the laws were placed in the Bible in the first place.
Exactly.
Because you have to also remember the laws were there to reflect God and to reflect his character. We should be following them out of love.
Right.
Now, if there was
not works.
So now that they're adding all this extraness,
it's like works. You need to do works to keep the law.
Exactly.
Also, we'll finish up real quick. He forgave sin. Oh boy, that they were so upset when he forgave sin,
because they didn't understand who he was.
He was God. He had the right to forgive sin. Also, he called himself the great I am, which was.
It was true. It was
God.
accurate.
So, pretty much, they were furious with Jesus. So what happened? What event? There was an event that took place that was the last straw. They had enough of Jesus. What happened? So we're going to read a quotation from the book Desire of Ages, which kind of outlines what happens, and also we're going to put the scriptural reference. We're going to read the scriptures as well of what happened, why they were furious. There was a last straw. They were going to get him. They had to kill him.
Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
read that?
So that last event was the resurrection of Lazarus.
Yes.
That was the last straw that they took from this person, Jesus Christ. So it says in Desire of Ages, page 537, Bethany was so near Jerusalem that the news of the raising of Lazarus was soon carried to the city. Through spies who had witnessed the miracle, the Jewish rulers were speedily in possession of the facts. A meeting of the Sanhedrin was at once called to decide as to what should be done. Christ had now fully made manifest his control of death and the grave. And it says that mighty miracle was the crowning evidence offered by God to men that he had sent his Son into the world for their salvation. It was a demonstration of divine power sufficient to convince every mind that was under the control of reason and enlightened conscience. Many who witnessed the resurrection of Lazarus were led to believe on Jesus. But the hatred of the priests against him was intensified. They had rejected all lesser evidence of his divinity, and they were only enraged at this new miracle. The dead had been raised in the full light of day and before a crowd of witnesses. Continuing on, it says, no artifice could explain away such evidence. For this very reason, the enmity of the priests grew deadlier. They were more than ever determined to put a stop to Christ's work.
Wow.
Isn't that insane? That is crazy.
Yes, that was the last straw. You know why? How can you, as the scribes and the Pharisees, right, and the Sanhedrin, whoever you are, Jewish rulers, how can you, right? Because you know what happened with the story of Lazarus. Lazarus had died before Jesus even got there.
Yes.
Lazarus had died a few days. His body started to rot. Exactly. How can they deny such miracle that Jesus wrought? Right? There was no evidence that can go against that, and they were furious, and
they were still upset. They still didn't understand who he was. Like, that just, you just saw this mind-blowing miracle, and you still, you instead of taking in admiration and understanding who this person is, you become upset and angry.
Yeah, so that tells me that Satan was at that point. Satan took full control of their mind, because that was the last miracle that God the Father was gonna give them, so that they believe in Jesus. And guess what? They denied it.
They still denied.
That was it.
Deny.
So let's see let's pick this up in the scriptures to see how John 11 depicts this. Can you read that for me, honey?
For sure. It says, therefore many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary and had seen what Jesus did believed in him. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Doesn't that sound like a snitch? It sounds like they still put the Pharisees over Jesus Christ himself.
Some people were for the Pharisees and some were for Jesus. Yeah.
Exactly. Continuing on, it says, then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. What are we accomplishing? They asked. Here is this man performing many signs. If we let him go on like this, everyone will believe in him, and then the Romans will come and take away both our temple and our nation.
That's what they were worried about.
That's what their focus was on.
Their power, and also that the Romans don't take away their power, because they were worrying that a civil war will take place. Some people for Jesus, some people for them, and there will be a civil war in the nation, and the Romans will come in and say, "Hey, I gave you guys authority to rule over this area. What's happening? Why is there so much riots?" So they were worrying about that.
Exactly. And then it says, then one of them, named Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. You know nothing at all. You do not realize that it is better for you that one man die for people than the whole nation perish.
Wow.
And then continuing, it says, he did not say this on his own, but as high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation. and not only for that nation, but also for the scattered children of God, to bring them together and make them one. So
Wow, that was crazy.
that is crazy. So from that day on, they plotted to take his life.
That's crazy. There's so much here that we're not going to unpack right now. But pretty much Caiaphas was the one that drove them to make that decision.
Yeah.
He came to, he pretty much prophesied that he saw that Jesus was supposed to die to bring, the nation back in peace. Wow. Because there were a few people in that council that wasn't for it. But after he said that, meaning he prophesied that Jesus was going to die for the nation, because it's better for one man to die than a whole nation to be destroyed by the Romans because of the upheaval. Wow. So that was the last straw, right? That was the last straw. So what happened in the capital of Jerusalem? What happened? And we're just gonna take the last few minutes to tell the story of what happened.
Yeah, give you an illustration
of what happened, right?
And we implore you to look into this story, because
we're gonna put the scriptures at the bottom of the screen so that they can read it.
Yeah.
So pretty much what happened was Judas, one of the disciples of Jesus, knew that the scribes and the Pharisees were after Jesus. They hated him.
And remember, Judas was one of Jesus' disciples.
Yes.
Keep that in mind.
Yes, but Judas loved so much money, right? And he wanted Jesus to display, right, his godly divinity, right? Remember, Jesus came to this earth not to display his royalty as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He came as a servant so that he can die on the cross for us.
Yeah.
But Judas wanted him to display that, and he knew that the scribes and the Pharisees were after Jesus. They hated him. We already went through the list of reasons why they hated him. Yeah. So he went to betray Jesus, not because he wanted Jesus to be killed, but he wanted Jesus to come out of his servant mode into divinity mode. And he did that for 30 pieces of silver.
Wow.
Long story short, in Gethsemane, after Jesus prayed, right, he was praying.
Yeah.
He wanted the disciples to pray with him after 3 times. Imagine one of your friends, right, one of your closest, right, allies, came, you're there praying, right, and you did, because remember, the weight of the world was on Jesus. Sin was upon him, right? And one of your closest friends, his disciple, was approaching with a mob. Because remember, I told you, the Pharisees had some people who were with them, some of the people who were with them.
Yeah.
So in the night, they came for Jesus with them. Imagine them with torches and things like that. And long story short, they led him into the council. People spit on him. They cursed him. They beat him. They took him before Pilate. They took him before Herod. And it was just, can you even imagine what happened to Jesus? And just to make a similarity to what happened there, with what happened in Washington D.C., what happened was there. And I'm being politically correct here. What happened was there was a situation where a president wanted to pretty much overturn an election, right? Because remember, the United States presidency is one of the most powerful positions, right, in this world. And I'm not saying he lost the election or he won it, whatever. We're just talking about the similarities here.
Yeah.
And in an effort to overturn the election, he insurrected, right? He incited, I would say, a mob, like what the Jewish people did. They incited a mob to go after Jesus because they were seeing the decline of their power over the people, because a lot of people were following Jesus because of his teaching.
Yeah.
Even though they were not in Washington D.C., they were not successful in overturning the election. Notice that the Jewish people were successful in killing Jesus, and it's all because of power, right? Yes, a few years down the line, in 70 AD, it would bite them in that butt, because at that point, right, God withdrew from them, right? Because remember, when they were in front of Pilate, right? When they were in front of Pilate, Pilate asked them, "Who do you want, Jesus or Barabbas?" And they chose Barabbas.
Yeah.
Right? They said, "We have no other king but Caesar," right? So God was done with them, right? And a few years down the line, which is in 70 AD, which happened, in history, the Romans will come in and destroy their city, right? But the focus here is that absolute power corrupts. And because that happened in the Jewish nation, Christ was crucified. And many people may ask, didn't he have to die? He didn't have to die that way, by the hand of his own people, right? And because, as Jackie said, they did not know him, right? They didn't know, and the common people did not know the scriptures. And imagine being led by leaders who don't even know the scriptures in the right light.
Yeah.
And because of that, Jesus was crucified.
And
So,
Jesus was crucified.
The reason again for this is that absolute power corrupts. And we just want to leave you with this thought that, yes, sometimes we look to leaders in powerful positions, right?
Yeah, we do.
We look, but at the end of the day, right? Our ultimate leader is Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah.
And
there's
we know
no better place to find him in our daily devotions, in our scripture, and through prayer, because he is the reason of why we're here today. He's the reason of why we do the things that we do in order to see him again.
Yes, and sometimes, and we're wrapping up here, sometimes even in the church and even among family members or even among friends, we argue for a certain politician over the next. And to be honest, I don't see the point in that, because
our true leader is Jesus Christ.
Yeah, and if you know a person is political, right? When they're saying, "Oh, this person is so great and this person is so bad," right? They're not telling you the person the bad things that the person that they support does. That's how you know someone is political, right? And people tend to argue for a certain politician or a certain leader, and don't realize that you can't control what those people do when they're in power, right? It's not like you're next to them, sitting next to them. You're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, all right? Or else I'll hurt you. We can't listen. The mob hardly got into the Capitol, right? And they didn't even overturn what happened, right?
They didn't.
So we can, and again, absolute power corrupts. Typically, when politicians get in power, it corrupts them, right? And that's why we want to bring you back to Jesus, because we know that he is all-powerful, almighty, and his power is not corrupt.
Yes.
So we want to lead you back to Jesus. Look to Jesus, not to any politician, not to any temporary leaders here. He is eternal. He's the eternal God that will never go away. He is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
Amen.
Hopefully, you have a good rest of your week, and thank you for joining us.